All right, that's an insane statement. This video is blowing my mind because I've never thought about these things. Wow, that's an insane image. Oh my gosh. No way, that can't be right. What is up? Welcome back. Today I'm reacting to a video titled, How Did the British Empire Rule the World? I only know that the British Empire ruled America. Obviously, you have the whole Revolutionary War and everything, but I'm an American discovering Europe. And so, yeah, this seemed pretty interesting to me. What's up? If you haven't met me yet, my name is Aaron, and this is Aaron Arno Reacts. Through this channel, I'm discovering everything about Europe, the people, the culture, the sports, the history, anything you can imagine. The goal of this channel is to laugh together, to learn together, and to have fun together. I post videos every single day. So if you're here for the very first time, make sure you hit like and subscribe. Now, let's see, how did the British Empire rule the entire world? Let's go.
The British Empire may not have technically ruled the world, but it was in fact the largest empire to exist at any point throughout history.
All right, that's an insane statement. Yeah, I mean, I guess when you look at that map, they ruled all those places. I don't know why America's not on there, though. Okay, let's go.
Reaching across the globe and carrying on over multiple centuries, the British Empire owes its success and ability to expand so widely. The geographical position of Great Britain served as a major advantage to the growing empire. Given that the nation was an island, the likelihood of being invaded or conquered was somewhat lower than a country that was surrounded on all sides by foreign powers.
That's actually interesting. I've never thought about that. Okay, interesting, actually. I would expect it to be, I guess if they had land to their western side, you know, bigger than Ireland, like something else, they would be in a much worse position. So I guess that makes sense with only stuff to their east. Interesting.
Although Britain was not completely immune to incursions, it definitely benefited geographically, both in terms of external threats and when it came to any border disputes. Britain had a pretty clear and straightforward border between itself and any other nations. While Scotland and England split the landmass that was bilaterally united with the ascension of Scotland's King James VI to the throne of England in 1603,
Wow.
Both states would together make up the nation of Great Britain by 1707, sharing their outward
Interesting. Okay, I didn't know that.
borders with nothing but the North Atlantic Ocean and the North Sea. This open position, with easy access for maritime expeditions, also gave Great Britain an upper hand when it came to reaching other countries and continents.
Okay.
Needing only to cross over foreign land when they wished to reach countries more inward on their continent, the Brits were able to sail to just about any coastal nation without much resistance. Still, oceanic adventures would not have been so effortless for the British Empire without a strong naval fleet.
Okay, so Britain has always had a strong navy, clearly. I mean, that's how they got to America. That's how they got to all those places that they colonized, actually. Was that an influence from the Nordic countries, though? Because I know the Vikings tried to take over England for a long time. Was this an influence from that?
This is where the size and power of the Royal Navy became a center point of British success. While Great Britain did not always control the world's oceans, the reason they began to skyrocket as an unignorable maritime power by the 18th century is largely due to the fact that they invested more money in ships and guns than other naval forces.
Oh, interesting.
The government and citizens of the British Empire truly believed that the future of their wealth was to be found through the ocean. Recognizing the importance of overseas trade, as well as a fleet that could also defend their land if ever required, the Brits...
Wait, so they thought their wealth was in other places. I mean, obviously that makes sense why they colonized, but also it points to the fact that they realized they didn't have, I guess, as many resources as they wanted on their huge island.
Made sure to adequately fund the Royal Navy. The Empire's focus on trade additionally contributed vastly to its triumphant transcontinental growth.
Wow.
Intent more on gaining wealth and increasing trade than on consolidating power through conquest, the Brits were able to create a more desirable environment for others to become a part of. After the successful colonization attempts in North America and the West Indies during the 1600s, the British Empire began to establish a commercial system that allowed for exponential success within Great Britain and its overseas territories. Colonies were granted monopolies for their products in the British market, and therefore were to conduct trade via British ships. In 1650,
Okay, real quick, I got a question because I'm seeing that thing go back and forth. How long did it take ship to go from Britain to the eastern part of the United States right there where England colonized? How long was that trip? Was that like a 3-week trip or was that like a 3-month trip?
1951, the Navigation Act would prompt the development of a closed economy between the empire and its colonies.
Interesting.
Thus creating a system where all colonial imports were required to come from Great Britain and all colonial exports were to be sent directly to the British market by the way of British ships. During the same century, the British East India Company was established.
Oh, everybody knows this. This is like one of the oldest and biggest companies in the world.
As a means of trade between Great Britain, East Asia, Southeast Asia, and India.
This is actually crazy. Like, obviously I'm thinking about India in the modern age, and it's still, maybe even difficult for a lot of people to trade with India and to communicate with India. I can't imagine what it was like, 400 years ago. And Britain just decided, hey, we're going to do this. And that's really admirable, actually, because, before, I can't imagine the language barrier at the time. Obviously now everyone speaks English, but yeah, that's actually something I've never thought about.
Initially focused on the spice trade, the East India Company later incorporated other goods such as silk, cotton, tea, opium, and more. Politics made its way into the company later on, despite the origin being purely based on establishing more trade opportunities.
Okay.
Driven
Yeah, in politics, they're probably going to say, like, it always destroys things like this. Everything, is meant for capitalism and trade, and there's obviously a negative side too, but I think it's going to say that politics destroyed it.
Limitlessly by the concept of controlling a global trade market, the British Empire continued to extend its reach across the continents of Europe, Asia, Africa, Australia, and the Americas.
Wow.
While the process of colonization varied from territory to territory, one thing that remained consistent was the form in which these expeditions began.
Okay.
Unlike other empires who chose to expand through the use of military might and sovereign claims to power, the British facilitated most of their expansion through the establishment of trading posts and systems. Nonetheless, the British Empire was not a completely non-violent authority. On top of the
Okay, interesting. So they didn't just sail to India and declare war like a lot of people would have back in the day. They said, hey, we just want to trade, but we need to set up here. And they established basically trading routes. That's how they kind of snuck their way into each of these countries. Okay, interesting.
Anglo-Dutch and Anglo-Spanish wars near the start of British expansion, the empire also engaged in conflict with its American colonies during
Revolutionary War.
the American Revolutionary War. Later followed by the dissension in India, succeeding the decline of the Mughal Empire, and leaving the British East India Company as a prominent political power in the region.
Interesting.
The presence of Britain in India was also notably more forceful than some of their...
Oh, interesting. Okay, I don't know anything about this. Do you know anything about this? Or am I just learning about this for the first time?
Their other trade-focused enclaves, demonstrated by the expansion of the East India Company's power through the threat of violence against those who protested. The continued tensions between the British and French were no longer secluded in India either, as the 7 Years' War erupted in 1756, lasting until...
France seized almost all of its possession in North America. Oh, Tobago. Oh, interesting. Between France and Britain. Okay. Wow. Spain seized Florida. Florida became... What? France gave Louisiana and its territory west of the Mississippi River to Spain. Oh, interesting. Okay. Spain ceded... Wow, a lot of stuff happening here.
Paris was signed in 1763, leaving Britain as the leading power across India and the world's oceans.
Wow.
When the American Revolutionary War came in 1775, after the British Empire responded to the no taxation without representation movement of the Americans by sending troops to try and subdue the colonies. France and Spain chose once again to go to war with Britain, now as allies of the newly declared United States.
Ah, interesting. Okay, so Spain and France became allies of the U.S. at this
In
time.
1783, at the Peace of Paris, the British Empire was forced to acknowledge American independence, in turn relinquishing any control over their former colonies.
Wow.
Devising a new strategy after such a drastic loss of territory, Great Britain now turned its attention toward the continents of Asia, Africa, and Australia, marketing what some historians call the beginning of the Second British Empire.
Oh, okay. The Second British Empire.
Though trade between the United States and Great Britain actually continued after the installation of independence, the empire chose to utilize the uncolonized coasts of Australia, which had been discovered by a Dutch explorer, Willem Janszoon, in
Okay, by Dutch.
1606, and later claimed for the British Crown by James Cook in 1770 under the name of New South Wales. Still feeding their fresh craving for expansion in South Asia, the British suddenly engaged in a series of conflicts after the Battle of Plassey, which had occurred in 1757.
Wow.
By 1774, the British Empire took on a chain of attacks. The Anglo-Mysore Wars were fought until 1799, followed by clashes with the Pindaris.
Wait a second. How big were these groups of British people in India? They had to have huge colonies of people. I mean, 100,000 people or something crazy. I imagine, one thing that I'm thinking about right now is how is there not more British influence on the people of India? For example, like literally their look. Because, normally when colonies kind of mix and mingle, for example, maybe the British and the Native Americans, you would have a different kind of a changing of peoples. So that's actually really interesting because a lot of people had to have been in India from Britain. So that's really something this video is blowing my mind because I've never thought about these things.
Attacks on places like Sindh and Burma also accelerated the new consolidation efforts of the British East India Company.
Wow, okay.
On top of what was referred to as the Doctrine Lapse, where the Brits forbid the ascension to the throne of any Hindu ruler if they were not the natural heir. Once the current Hindu leader either died or was removed in some way, the British would occupy his state and gain control.
So they were literally expanding across India when the Hindu leaders died. I didn't realize this was a religious war in a lot of ways too. Wow, okay.
These acts by the British Empire, combined with other forms of forced westernization of the Hindus, led to the Sepoy Mutiny of 1857 to 1859. Tired of the current heavy-handed British rule, the Indian troops of Meru sparked a rebellion that would spread throughout the nation. Peace was finally declared in July of 1859, and the British East India Company was scrapped. Although the empire maintained a level of control under the crown until 1947. During this span of time, Great Britain set about making its presence better known in Africa as well. Although the Royal African Company had been established back
that's an insane image. He's standing across Africa.
in the 17th century, finding ample profit in the slave trade until its abolition in 1807. It was not until the 19th century that the Brits realized the potential benefit of forming a trade route across Africa.
What? That's what that image was about, was a trade route across. That's crazy.
With its eyes set on establishing outposts spanning from Egypt down to the southern half of the continent, the British Empire found itself in a race against the other growing European powers, such as Italy and Germany, which eventually led to the Berlin Conference.
Okay.
The conference, which occurred in 1884, was intended to create some harmony between the competing colonizers. Great Britain was ultimately awarded most of northeastern Africa and all of southern Africa, meaning that at its peak in the continent, the British Empire ruled over approximately 30% of the African population.
What?
Globally,
Hold on a second. Britain ruled over 30% of the African population. Did you know that? Or am I the only one learning this now? I mean, South Africa, okay, I understand this one. I mean, it makes sense if you just think about it. But yeah, I wouldn't expect there to be much influence in Egypt, Nigeria, or here in the middle of the continent either. And it looks like they even had Somalia. It's so interesting.
At the height of Britain's domination, it controlled roughly 22 to 25% of the world's land surface.
Oh my gosh. You see how small Britain is in comparison to the land that they conquered? Britain owned 22 to 25% of the entire world's land surface. That's really impressive. You British people, that's really amazing. Did you know that?
And by 1938, governed around 20% of the world's population.
No way, that can't be right. 20% of the world's population. I mean, I guess with India, it's a huge population. And, well, not really Canada and not Australia. Also, Africa has a huge population. Wow, and the Middle East here. I didn't know this. I did not know this. I didn't realize Great Britain ruled so much of the Middle East either now that I'm looking at the map. Or Africa, that much of Africa. Like, I knew Australia. I didn't know much about Canada, but I knew India also. Yeah, this is blowing my mind. Like, really, is this blowing your mind? I mean, it should be.
This remarkable prosperity was accomplished through a geographical advantage, supreme naval might, and the strategic focus on trade and wealth over bullish sovereign power for the sake of an emperor. Crazy video. I don't know if you've ever seen that before or heard about this, but the British Empire used to be insanely large. Like I'm really blown away by this. And yeah, I can't wait to learn more about British history, learn more about Britain. Interesting country, amazing sports and people and food and culture. So anyways, I'm going to keep exploring the UK and England. I'm going to keep exploring their part of history and their part of the world. So if you enjoyed the video, make sure you hit like and subscribe so you can see another video just like this one in the future. And if you want to support the channel even more, make sure you check out my other links down below. And I hope to see you in the next video. Cheers.